I was still shaking snow off my coat when my dad looked up from his drink, eyes half fogged, mouth curling into that familiar mean smirk. Didn't know the Parasite was invited. A few relatives snorted. Someone clinked a glass. I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. I just hung my coat on the hook, like the word hadn't been carved into me 1,000 times before tonight. But the truth? My pulse was steady, my breathing calm. Because I hadn't come here to be welcomed. I'd come to end something. Backstory: before the blade turned. There was a time I still defended him, when I still believed the alcohol was the villain, not the man drinking it. I used to replay childhood scenes like they were excuses. He hit me because he was stressed. He screamed because he cared. He controlled because he loved. A child has to believe something, right? Otherwise the world collapses too early. But adulthood has a way of stripping illusions bare. You learn the difference between discipline and humiliation, guidance and domination, love and ownership. For years I carried the weight of his disappointment like some inherited debt. He'd tell me I owed him, for food, for shelter, for the right to breathe under his roof. It took me too long to realize that debt was imaginary, and that he wasn't disappointed in who I became, he was disappointed I escaped who he wanted me to be. Discovery, the last straw. The shift started small, it always does. Hushed conversations when I walked into the room. My mother going silent mid-sentence. Relatives looking at me with a strange mix of pity and satisfaction, like I was a movie they'd already seen the ending of. I ignored it until I couldn't, until the night I walked past my mother's room and heard it myself. Dad, slurring on the phone, laughing. "Don't worry, he won't have the house after I'm done. I'll sign everything over before he even knows. Let him rot, useless boy." My name wasn't spoken, but the knife found its mark anyway. They were planning to strip the inheritance, not because I wanted it, but because denying it meant power, control, one final humiliation. I didn't burst in, didn't confront, didn't rage. I simply walked back to my room and sat in the dark, letting the truth settle like cold steel against skin. And I decided, if they wanted a war, I'd give them a silent one. Shift, strategy over emotion. I started with documents, bank records, property deeds, legal filings my father assumed I was too stupid or too lazy to understand. What he didn't know, I'd been preparing for years. Every time he'd called me useless, I'd sharpened myself in silence. Every insult was a quiet rep, a push-up, a page of a book, a late-night study session. So I filed for a legal freeze on the property, citing family dispute over ownership. I submitted evidence of financial manipulation and coercion. I contacted a lawyer who'd once told me, "If you ever need to level a battlefield, call me." And I waited, patient, still, a serpent warming under ice. Execution, the meal before the kill. Which brings us back to tonight. The dinner table was a battlefield disguised with tablecloths and candles. Dad kept glancing my way, waiting for the parasite to twitch. I didn't give him the pleasure. Instead, halfway through dinner, I lifted my glass, caught the room's attention, and spoke with a calmness that pricked the air like needles. "I just wanted to let everyone know," I said, "that the property transfer Dad attempted last week has been legally frozen." Forks paused. Drinks froze mid-air. My father's jaw sagged first. I continued, voice steady, "And since I've submitted evidence of financial coercion, any attempt to move assets without mutual consent now constitutes fraud." My aunt dropped her spoon. My mother went pale. My father looked like he'd swallowed boiling water. I leaned back, measured, controlled. "Oh," I added softly, "and the lawyer handling this said he'd be contacting everyone who assisted. Apparently helping someone hide assets is, what was the word? Complicity." Silence. Heavy, suffocating, perfect. My father finally rasped, "You think you can threaten me in my own house?" I looked right at him. Not threatening, informing. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. For the first time in my life, he had no script to dominate me with. No insult sharp enough. No drink strong enough. I watched him shrink, the king dethroned by his own arrogance. Resolution, the breath after the storm. When I walked out, the snow had stopped. The air was clean, cold, honest. I pulled my coat tighter and felt something unfamiliar in my chest. Not anger, not triumph, freedom. People like my father think control is a leash they wrap around others. But the truth is simpler. The moment you stop pulling, they fall backward under their own weight. Tonight, I didn't just get even. I got out. And as the door closed behind me, I realized some revenge isn't